as Tawhidic epistemology. More precisely, we are referring to applied Tawhidic epistemology that deals with civilizational ideas. Some of the most important civilizational ideas are religion as the core dimension of human civilization, the unity of the human and the divine roles in civilization building, and the interrelationship between tradition, revival, and change. All these ideas have important implications for Islamic education at all levels. In Islamic perspective, there are three different categories of tradition, namely the divine tradition, Sunnatullah, the prophetic tradition, Sunnatul Nabi, and the Ummatic tradition, the tradition of the Ummah as a single body. Next. I continue with this abstract. I will attempt to discuss the meanings of the divine and the prophetic traditions in the light of which understanding alone can we gain a coherent and clear vision of the historical process that we call ummatic revival. Philosophically, the theory of ummatic revival would be best formulated if it were to be conceived. If it were for both permanence and change. The spirit of my whole discussion is to draw as much significance as possible from the theme revival rooted in tradition for Islamic education. I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. To draw as much significance as possible from the theme revival rooted tradition for Islamic education for our times. Next slide, please. Let me go to some introductory remarks pertaining some of the basic issues when we talk about revival rooted in tradition. My first point, tradition and revival are key ideas in comparative civilizational studies. I'm approaching the theme from the perspective of science of civilization, with which I'm a little familiar, so I thought that it was a good idea to look at the theme from the perspective of the whole picture. In other words, we want to look at the whole picture as implied in the topic. So I'm saying that for those who study different civilizations, human civilization, particularly comparative civilization, then this theme would be a very good one for us to have dialogue with other cultures, to carry out research studies, right? Not only among our fellow Muslims and academics, but also with the other scholars who are interested in tradition, insofar as there are people in the rest of the humanity who are interested in tradition. Now, these two ideas, tradition and revival, I've said that these are philosophical and universal ideas. meaning that these ideas of interest or relevance to the whole of humanity. But I would say that as what we find in Islam, these philosophical ideas about tradition and revival are to be found in great details. Yeah? In other words, the subject of tradition and revival, as attested to by the many works by our past ulama, our past scholars, dealing with this subject, because this is quite central to the teaching of Islam. Now, these two ideas are close to each other in their semantic relationship. Now you're using the word English in English language. You do tradition, revival, but these two words are not represented in the Arabic language by just a single term. In other words, the semantic field generated by these two terms are so wide that they encompass basically the entire concept of civilization. So, for example, tradition. What should be? What is the word that should correspond to the English word tradition? Well, certainly two of the most important is one of course says sunnah. The sunnah implies tradition. But even the word deen, which we often translate as religion, that also refers to tradition. So tradition in the Islamic perspective, even from the viewpoint of terminology, it's not sufficient to express what we mean by tradition by simply relying on the English word. But when we go to the word deen, sunnah, that is, in other words, the semantic field is much broader, much wider. Same thing, revival. There's different words to denote the concept of revival, renaissance, renewal, and so on. So this, what we have, well, we are familiar in our Islamic tradition with the words tajdeed, this is renewal, even the big word of Imam Ghazali, that's also a question of revival. So the say islah in a sense, although it refers to a sense of reform, but that implies a very important aspect of revival. So revival, when I say that each word implies the other. When you use the word when you use the word tradition and revival, we understand that each word implies the other. The revival presupposes, the idea of revival presupposes the prior existence of a tradition. And tradition entails revival. A tradition is always open to the possibility of deviation. I think the basic idea emphasized in the Quran is precisely deviation. Deviation from Tawheed to Shirk. Shirk, polytheism, is a deviation from that, what is called the standard position, that which is Tawheed. Decline. So the possibility of decline and possibility of decay, and hence the necessity of revival, restoration, and renewal, and so on. Now, both ideas have educational dimension. Both ideas have educational dimension. Tradition. Tradition means learning. So in a sense, it is implied by that, as far as education is concerned. Tradition means learning. The first generation of Muslims have to learn the tradition or the prophetic tradition. The second generation of the followers, learn the tradition through the companions who were followers of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then began that deviation, that decline, which I used the word here, unlearning, not exactly in the same sense that it is used today by educationists, but the unlearning. Basically here, the unlearning, in other words, the marginalization, the forgotten, the loss of what is true and beneficial as contained in tradition. So that process, and we have unlearning and relearning. Okay, next slides. Now, next I would like to take you to what I think is very, very important to understand the knowledge foundation, or the epistemological foundation of this idea of revival rooted in tradition. It's important because Islam is a religion of knowledge. Yes, the Quran emphasizes that Islam is a religion of truth, Dinul Haq. But Muslim scholars, Muslim philosophers and thinkers have always interpreted Islam as religion of knowledge to mean as synonymous with Islam as religion of knowledge. So Islam is religion of knowledge, is knowledge-based religion. I would say that Islam is a religion of knowledge par excellence, more than in any other religion. Yes, some other religions are also emphasize knowledge, but not as much, not to the extent that we observe in the Quran, in the prophetic Sunnah, and in the Islamic civilization. And of course, when you go to this aspect of knowledge, then we are brought to the idea of Tawhidic epistemology, which is, of course, out of what we call the science of Tawhid, the science of unity. Allah's greatest gift to Muslim civilization is Islamic, this is Tawhidic epistemology, the idea of Tawhid, because the human mind cannot run away from the idea of unity. Others outside Islam may be attracted to the idea of unity, of course, with a different terminology. I think it is only 20 years ago, the concept of art science was revived. Right? Art science as one single word, art science. In other words, the unity of one science after decades and decades in the West of facing that clash between academic disciplines, between the art and the sciences and the humanities. So but to speak of Tawhidic epistemology, in other words, the theory of the one, of unity, I want to break you to in other words, the principles, this very important principle underlying Tawhidic epistemology. There is the cosmological principle of permanence and change. Right? Permanence and change. Because we live in a world, in the past, let's say, I would say, ever since the organic theory, the Darwinian theory of evolution, what has been emphasized is change. And gradually, change, basically, not in the light of permanence, but simply studying change for its own sake. This has left important impact on Muslim education. Basically, because so much is changing. The Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Education in Malaysia, for example, well, we can study change. Of course, we have to study change, because change is a part of reality. But there are two different ways of dealing with change. Just dealing with change just simply without any foundation, or change within the framework of something permanent. And this is what we have in Islam. In other words, the foundation is, of course, the Quran and the Sunnah, Tawhid in short, and we can study changes in the different disciplines, but always without foundation. But that is not always happening. And of course, that is passed down to schools, to the schools. It's not just at the university, the school. The framework simply has left a very important impact on the mindset of Muslims. So, we need to understand, we need to study and understand change both at the cosmic level as well as at the societal level in the light of permanence. It is tradition that symbolizes permanence. This permanence is represented by tradition, represented by the Quran and the Sunnah, or the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Revival symbolizes change, albeit the preferred one. When we study revival, philosophically speaking, we are studying a particular kind of change, the preferred change, the change preferred by Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Yeah. People can talk about revival in other contexts, of course, in context. But in our case, when we refer to revival, it's always the revival, we're referring to the revealed tradition, the revealed tradition that is to be found in Islam. Now, the other important principle that to be observed when talking about Tawhidic epistemology is the idea of the unity of the divine and the human roles in civilization building, in civilizational development, civilizational decline, and civilizational renewal. This what we call this Tajdid Hadari, renewal. So but we see through our studying these things, then what is important to us then, it is the divine sunnah, sunnatullah, that is the fundamental shaping factor of this unity of divine and human role. So in our perspective, everything that happens in our human society is the product of two roles. At the material level, at the physical level, at the sociological level, the human role is very important because Allah has given freedom to us. But underlying all this reality in the human world is the divine role. And therefore, we believe as Muslims that whatever happens in human society is ultimately the effect, the consequence, or the cause of the divine role. In other words, I'll come to that more, inshallah. So, Tawhidi epistemology, therefore, is the knowledge foundation of the civilizational phenomena of revival that is rooted in tradition. Now, of course, revival here is understood as, and when we are speaking of revival, what it means is that we seek to restore the Tawhidic identity of the Islamic tradition at all levels, in all its dimensions. Next slide, please. I want to go now to the three categories of tradition. First, the divine tradition, Sunnatullah. As there are many verses in the Quran that refer to Sunnatullah. In other words, referring what. Now, one example I give here, of course, this from Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 62. And just read the translation here. Such was the practice, approved of Allah, among those who lived before you. No change will you find in Sunnatullah. No change. In other words, human history actually is governed by cycles. Time is cyclic from the viewpoint of scholars like Ibn Khaldun and many others. Time is not linear, but cyclic. And because it is cyclic, history repeats itself. We have another saying, and history repeats itself. Yes, it is cycling. And therefore, those who care to study history, to observe what happened in history, then we know that what was happening in the human world. All right, and of course this Sunnatullah is not only in the human world but also in the cosmos. In the past, some scholars refer to influenced by Greek philosophy. There is the word namus. The word namus referring to the law operating, the nomos, the Greek nomos, referring to the law, the universal law that operates in the world of nature, in the cosmos as a whole. So that is important to understand. So when to talk about mindset, when to talk about education, to train the Muslim mindset, to understand that what is happening in our human world is not separated from what's happening in the cosmos. This is that's why in the planning, for example, when political leaders, world leaders, it's the same whether Muslims or non-Muslims. So when you plan, for example, the 5-year plan, many other plans for the economies and so on, economic plan, people tend to forget that there is the unhidden or the hidden factor, which is what is the effect, the consequence of natural phenomena. In other words, when is earthquake going to happen? When is flood going to happen? And so on. These are parts of the what's happening in the laws of nature. How different was the case with the Muslim scholars of the past? I give you an example of one of our philosophers, Al-Farabi, for example, the one who wrote the perfect state, Majna al-Fadilah. Why do these people, scholars, when they wrote works on political science, meaning on civilization, always beginning with those what we call today Arkanul Iman, the 6 articles of faith. Why so important about 6 articles of faith, Arkanul Iman, to the study of sociology, anthropology, economics, and so on? Precisely not to miss the point. The world of nature serves as the background, the immediate background to our life in society. So, of course, Muslims make dua. In other words, the role of prayer. The role of prayer is kind of the linking, the links that is between the heavens and the earth. The earth is never viewed as something entirely separated from the heaven. And of course, I'm using the word here in the philosophical thing, but what I mean is that in our Muslim mindset, by studying, really understanding the meaning of the 6 articles of faith, that is the background for the 5 pillars of Islam. So Arkan Iman serves as the ideological background, the intellectual background for the action summarized by the 5 pillars of Islam, Arkanul Islam. And that's the kind of epistemology that we're trying to impress upon the present younger generation of Muslims, because our system of education has separated that. So we ask, what's so important about Arkanul Iman? They say, no, this is just good for the mind. This is just, the matter of intellectual, not relevant to practical things, the real thing in life. But that is not true. What's actually the case? So this was what I mean. The animal species, for example, as umam, as the ummah, like you, mithukum. In other words, in our age, when we are talking about the environment, we are conscious of the environment, all those species. Why does the Quran call them ummah? The species, the bees, is an ummah. The ants is an ummah. Why is the same word ummah is used for the animal kingdom as well as for the human being? There's a profound meaning in that. All right. I think the next question is the prophetic tradition. What I mean here by the prophetic tradition, I do not mean the tradition of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone, but here I'm talking about the prophetic tradition as applied to the whole chain of prophethood. I mean that tradition, which is basically a divine tradition, divine tradition. But here I put it under the category of prophetic tradition. According to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were altogether 124,000 prophets. That's how long that change of prophet, culminating, of course, in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, culminating in him. That is the last. Now, there's a lot of significance of being the last. We seldom deal a lot with that. We just a little bit, except perhaps for the mufassirun, those who go in the field of tafsir. But we say, yes, Islam is the last religion. But we do very little to think about what is the implication of that being the last. Being the last. Because it's precisely because being the last, then there is a lot of things to be said about the future role of Islam. But anyway, I just want, it's a too broad subject here, but what I want to emphasize here, for example, I quoted here one verse from Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 48, to each prophet among you, we have prescribed a law, shir'ah, and a spiritual way, minhaj. This لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا. The shir'ah referring to the law, and the minhaj referring to the belief system, the spiritual way. So basically, that is the role of every prophet. So this defines the prophetic tradition as revealed by Allah. And the Quran has summarized this prophetic tradition by referring these two. In other words, basically, if you want to use our term today, what it means that the part that is referred to as the law, the Sharia, which provides the entire code of ethics of how you organize our life. But as for the spiritual way, I would refers to basically to the Tawheed, because every prophet has brought with him the spiritual way, the Tawheed, and the law, and of course the Sharia varies from prophet to prophet, but the universal implication is that humanity in any age needs these two important to the idea of our revival. When we're asking revival, I'm referring to these two branches of our religion, of our civilization, that we need to revive. Reviving the law and also reviving the spiritual way. Now, the other one, of course, is the Ummatic tradition. The Ummatic tradition. We have, basically, I quoted one from the Quran to support this concept of Ummatic tradition. From Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat 143, verse 143, thus have we made of you an ummah justly balanced. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ ummatan wasatan. That you might be justly balanced, that you might be witnesses over the nation. لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. And the messenger a witness over yourselves. وَيَكُونَ الرَّسُولُ عَلَيْكُمْ شَهِيدًا. Now, this is very important in talking about revival. What does it mean? What does this verse mean to the idea of revival? This revival is regard, of course, to our global role as an ummah. As we all are aware, today we are witnessing all kinds of catastrophes. Catastrophes we are suffering. Of course, the worst is what we observe in Gaza. But practically everywhere we have problems, we have crises, we have that. So this is important. Going for more time. Yeah, thank you very much for 5 minutes each. Oh, okay. Yes, and of course the other one is verily Allah is a hadith, a popular hadith. Verily Allah will raise up in this nation at the beginning of every century someone who will new religion. Maybe someone among you have studied this, how to relate this to the role of education. In other words, because here this is kind of providing a 100-year period to think about the Muslim planning, having a 100-year planning between one revival and the next revival based on this hadith. Of course, we can talk about the 30 years plan, a generation, but here it's 100 years basically to think about how should we plan our education. How should we plan our education in the light of this prophetic hadith? So because of the time, just my concluding remarks, just to emphasize the many implications of this principle revival rooted in tradition. I also mentioned that this question of learning, unlearning, relearning, and to apply that in various aspects. And so I'll not repeat that. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share a few things with you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay. Questions?
Jazakallah very much, Professor, for that enlightening explanation. Ladies and gentlemen, if there are any questions, I'd invite the sisters to take this mic and the gentlemen to take that mic. While you're coming up, I'll just remind 2 quick announcements. One is, at the end of the day, we're going to be having a networking sessions between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in this hall, and some directions will be given for that, inshallah. But at 5 o'clock, after that formal function, all the delegates that are here from Australia, at 5 o'clock, can we please meet in one of the breakout rooms, Casing 2. Australian delegates, 5 o'clock, a meeting in Casing 2, inshallah. I see there's a question there. Professor, go ahead.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, Dato Professor. Thank you very much for your extremely thought-provoking speech. My question is that you had mentioned that Ibn Farabi, when talking about political science, started from Arkanul Islam. So my question is, in the context of Islamic schools, what do you understand by revival in rooted sciences, in traditions? Do you understand this to mean that the Islamic schools should be teaching English, math, science in the way it is right now, but have an extra curriculum to make them good Muslims? Is this your understanding of revival based in tradition, or that the subjects itself they're teaching, studying English, math, science, is re-looked based on our own Islamic tradition? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Well, the role of schools, Islamic schools in particular, is to train, is to create a mindset. Well, it is the Muslim, being a Muslim, but with a Muslim mindset and with the right akhlaq, behavior, to the two levels, one at the level of thought and the other at the level of action. It is true that some schools tend to emphasize more at the level of action, all right, marginalizing a little bit at the thought level, but I think it should be balanced, precisely because we have Arkanul Iman and Arkanul Islam. Arkanul Iman deals with thought, the shaping of the Muslim thought, the Muslim mind. It's about having the right belief, all right? And that belief is not just simply, well, after 6 years in a school, that's done, it's enough. No. That's why both deals with Tawheed. Yeah? Basically, what's the role of our education is to enable us, male and female, to be a muwahid, in order to be a monotheist, the believer in Tawheed. And I said there is theoretical Tawheed, which we study the Arkanul Iman. There is the applied, practical, which is this Tawheed, which is precisely to act on those 5 pillars and their extensions, of course. So, Tawheed is the science that we learn from standard 1 until university, in fact, until the end of life. Where is the concept of lifelong education that we all speak about? For Muslims, it means to advance in the science of knowledge, and it is Tawheed, the Tawheed. So, therefore, we should plan our curriculum in such a way that this Tawheedi perspective is reflected in all disciplines, even when we study English. In our the curriculum of English as well need to suit that, yeah, because what I mean, yeah, and of course the mathematics, that's very, very important. Today, people have the idea that there's only one type of mathematics, the mathematics that we learn today in school. But that was not so in Islamic history. In Islamic history, there is well, I say, my field before was, I was trained in mathematics. Yeah? I gave my first 2 degrees in mathematics. Mathematics, for example, numbers are not merely quantities that you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. No, that is the modern idea of mathematics. But the Muslim mathematicians also talk about the spiritual dimension of numbers. Numbers are also qualities. Not just kamiyah, but also kafiyah. Yeah, it's both. Right? This is an example. Yes, continue to teach. Very, very important. Science, mathematics, history, and so on. But we should always be aware that the Tawheed based on La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, contains the entire philosophy of education for all of us. I can go and on, but thank you very much. Okay. On your behalf, we'd like to add a certificate of appreciation to Dr. You are visiting Islamic University, Ahlan wa Sahlan. Welcome you all.
It gives me great pleasure to hand the podium over to one of the members on our board, Sophia Asmat, who will take over from here. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Our next session is going to be by Dr. Nadeem Maiman and Dr. Farah Ahmed. Dr. Nadeem Maiman is a Senior Research Fellow and the Program Director for Islamic Education in the Center for Islamic Thought and Education, CITE. And that's in the School of Education at the University of South Australia. I think many of you are already familiar with him and his work. Prior to joining UNISA, Nadeem was the Director of Education at Razi Education, a Canadian education consulting firm that develops professional development for educators, where he spearheaded the design and implementation of a groundbreaking online teacher certificate program at the Islamic Teacher Education. It was called ITEP. And I know that when I was teaching at a school in New Jersey, several of our teachers went through that program. It was excellent. And I wish that he could have continued it. I know there's other things that he's involved in. I hope that something like that is revived again. Dr. Farah Ahmed, she will be co-facilitating with Dr. Nadeem. I think many of you know of her already, but those of you who may not, she is, it's called the Leverhulme Early Career Research Fellow at the Faculty of Education, University of Cambridge. So thank you for coming out from the UK, and thank you, Brother Nadeem, for coming up from Australia. Dr. Farah convenes the cultural, religious, and philosophical traditions in educational dialogue strand of the Cambridge Educational Dialogue Research Group. She's the Director of Education and Research and the lead developer of Shakhsiya Halaka and Holistic Thematic Curricula. And she's the author of Principles of Shakhsiya Education and Dialogue Halaka, a guide for the Muslim educator. They're going to be, please do come on up, and they will give you some of the guidelines of how they're going to conduct the session, so it won't necessarily be just them being up here and just talking at you. It'll be a little bit different from what you've experienced this morning. And we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. This session is designed to be an opportunity for us to connect. Oftentimes when we have really profound keynote speeches like the ones we've just had with Dr. Samir and Professor Osman, we don't have a chance to let it sink in. We don't always have a chance to let it percolate, and an opportunity to engage in a dialogue where we get a chance to think about its implications for our work. So for the next session, this is intended to be a dialogue that allows us that space to connect with others, but at the same time to really decompress, reflect, and as was mentioned, relearn, unlearn, and relearn for a little bit of time together. Do we have slides? All right, so they don't have our slides, which is good. So we'll improvise. That's fine, that's fine. What we'd like to do before we jump into the actual dialogue is we'd like to give you a bit of an introduction to a dialogue that we've been having collectively as a group of academics, scholars, and educators for the past few years through the Cambridge Dialogue. So I'll pass it to Dr. Farah to speak a little bit about the Cambridge Dialogues, and then we'll transition to talk about our dialogue, inshallah.
All right, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Bismillahir Rahim, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Salatu Sayyidina Muhammad, wa ali sahabi ajma'in. I believe there's a search going on for the slide, but inshallah I'm going to try and speak from memory. So what I want to talk about is that when we're listening to these really amazing speeches, really amazing, deep concepts from our tradition, and we've been thinking about how can we draw on that. Even the work of, for example, say Naqib al-Atas, who is a leading scholar in Malaysia, Professor Osman Bakr, another leading scholar here in Malaysia, in this very core context, the level of depth that they are working at is very hard for educators to access. So what we've been doing for the past 2-3 years is we've been gathering, first of all, as academics who work kind of in between schools and research and with scholarship, and we've been having our own dialogues. And from those dialogues, we have come up with 3 position papers. which will be published in journals, and we will be sharing them as summaries on a website, which will be the Cambridge Dialogues website. Currently, we only have a web page. So that's the first thing I wanted to share with you. So the position papers are around 3 different things. The first one is around looking at 7 different projects that have tried to translate Islamic educational theory into practice and how they've done that, so that we can learn from existing projects. The second paper is developing a very outline understanding of some of the terms that we've been hearing today and from the Islamic education traditions. So terms that you might be familiar with, such as tarbiyah, ta'aleem, ta'deeb, but also tahqiq and ta'aruf and tazkiyah and various other terms. So we wanted to kind of like put that in one place and show where these aren't synonyms, where the differences lie and which scholars have worked on that. And then the final paper is around actually how do we conduct educational research from an Islamic basis. So if we're educational researchers and we're talking about schools should be educating from the Islamic tradition, then what are we doing, right? So we've done some work on that previously. We want to develop that work further. So that's our third paper. So that's the kind of like the academic bit, which may not connect as much to you. The second bit was, I'm going to actually ask my colleague, Dr. Nadeem, to talk about, because we had a dialogue in Cambridge in December last year between scholars, ulama, researchers ourselves, academic researchers, and school leaders. And from that we have published a white paper, and I'll ask him to share that with you, inshallah.
So to build on that, as Dr. Farah said, in December last year, a group of us, 24 of us, that comprised of educational leaders, scholars, and educational researchers came together to do one particular thing. We realized that we each have very unique vantage points in how we view and engage with education in Islamic schools. And we realized that we have that same thing right here in this room today, that this is an opportunity for us to really benefit from each other's expertise and really hikmah, knowledge that we bring to the table. So that dialogue that we had in December revealed a couple of really important things. And one of that was, the intent was that we wanted to foster stronger collaborations across the sector, which is true. We realized that we don't, as academics, sometimes speak enough to educators, or educators don't get a chance to connect with scholars, or scholars with academics. And to bring us all into the same room was an opportunity to say, what is it that we actually bring to the table? What is it that we offer the field? And how is that going to lead to the level of civilizational renewal or school renewal that Professor Usman spoke about? It was also meant to build an ongoing dialogic loop. And we're hoping that today's dialogue and tomorrow's dialogue will be opportunities for us to take these really informative, thought-provoking ideas from the keynote speeches and start thinking to ourselves together, collectively, with the brains, the minds, and the hearts in this room, to ask ourselves, how does this shift the way we think? These are some of the key takeaways, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but one thing we realized in the dialogue that we had in December was that we all don't actually fit in very cleanly to one category. There are scholars that are educators. There are educators that are scholars and academics, and you get the idea. And that was a real realization for us, to realize how we straddle multiple aspects or multiple vantage points. But we also realized that there's a lot of curriculum, school model, pedagogical model work that's happening globally. And if there's a place to have that conversation, it's a place like this, at a global conference, where we can start to learn from each other about what's brewing in different parts of the world. There was a number of them, but I think if you'd like to read the white paper that we produced out of this, we have copies at the site table, but you can also click on the QR code and you can download it. It's free, it's a PDF, and you'll have a chance to read it in more depth. I'll leave that there for a second, just before we continue. Okay. So, this session, as we mentioned, is meant to be a dialogue. It's meant to be an opportunity for us to really learn from each other. So we ask that you'll be in groups. First thing we ask is that you sit with people that you don't know. Ideally, if you're sitting with people that you've come with from your schools or your school communities, make an effort to try to find a different table that allows you to have conversations across contexts. But one is, we want this to be a dialogue where everyone has a chance to share and contribute. So please keep your thoughts, your reflections concise. Allow for an opportunity, as we would, for everyone to contribute, and really try to maintain, this is the key, we would really like to maintain our dialogue on the key ideas that were presented in the keynote speeches. And that's going to force us in some way to really draw out as much as we can from the wealth that was shared over the last two sessions.
So we were anticipating there were going to be round tables, which clearly isn't the case. We have got about 20 odd facilitators, volunteers, mainly the presenters from the session, from this conference, who are happy to facilitate a dialogue. Now, what we want, we've got a series of, I think, 3 questions, and what we want to do is allocate about 15 minutes per question. So the question is designed to get you to think about the keynote speeches, and we want to maximize this time for a small group dialogue, and we'd like your feedback, but there isn't really going to be an opportunity for you to feedback to the entire group, partly because of logistics, but we will hopefully through the facilitators collect some debriefing and maybe use this to contribute to our work in terms of having this dialogue loop that we talked about, inshallah. Are we going to go? Okay, yeah, let's just. So what we suggest you do, because you don't have round tables, is that if the tables at the front turn around and face the table behind them, so tables 1 and 2, then tables 3 and 4 would be a group, tables 5 and 6 would be a group. I appreciate there's actually a row 9 at the back. You're going to have to be a little bit more creative. As Dr. Nadeem said, if you're literally sitting only with your school, you might want to walk around and find a gap, a space. If sisters and brothers are happy to collaborate, we do in our professional lives all the time, we'd encourage that so that we get multiple perspectives, but if you feel more comfortable sitting in your own groups, that's fine as well. But if we can ask you to settle down, inshallah, and then we'll put the first question up and you can get your dialogue going. Facilitators, it would be great if you could either facilitate the group where you're sitting, or if you're sitting together, move to a different group. Not every group is going to have a facilitator because they're smaller than we anticipated. So if you don't have a facilitator in your group, please just appoint one, inshallah. That would be really helpful. Jazakallah khairan for your cooperation.
Assalamu alaikum, guys. I'm a facilitator, so I thought I'll come to a call. Is that okay? And actually, let me get a paper and pen to write.
That's the best one, right? So if everybody can take a seat, we can start introducing the first question. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So the first thing we'd like you to do in your groups is to think about what would you say are the key takeaways. Maybe narrow this down to 3. 3 key takeaways from today's keynote speeches that you think are the most important takeaways. So that's the first question.
So are we talking about that, or are we going to write it first independently? Actually, what do you think? Should we each take a few minutes to think independently, and then do you guys need a facilitator? Okay. I feel like you're good. Okay, good. Alright. So you all know each other? You just met. Mashallah. Mashallah. Oh my gosh. And you too. Oh, mashallah. I'm Shaza. I'm from the United
saya panggil ni je. Kawan di depan. Testing out 1 2 check check. Testing out 1 2 testing out 1 2 test. Hey, check check. Test. Okay.
لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام.
Pause for 2 minutes. I'm sure there's some amazing conversations happening, which is brilliant. That's exactly what we wanted. But you'll notice that the timer has gone red. So, just before I move on to the second question, I just want some reminders. The idea of the first question is that you narrow down the amazing takeaways from this morning to 3 in your group. The 3 most important takeaways that your group considers. At the end of this session, we'll be sharing a Google form, and we'd like one person, either the facilitator or anybody, please allocate somebody from your group to put those 3 key takeaways into the Google form. That's going to be really important because what we're trying to do, this is a conference. We are conferring with you. We need your input. We need your feedback. So I'm going to now put the second question up, and there'll be another 15-minute timer, inshallah. Feel free to connect what you've been discussing in question 1 with question 2. There will be a third question. So this is a dialogue, and the way a dialogue works is that you build on, you move on, you take what you establish in the beginning, and you're going to either go deeper, broader, you're going to take it further. So I'm just going to reiterate. So far, we've had one question, you've been discussing for 15 minutes. From that question, you're going to narrow down 3 key takeaways. At the end of this session during lunchtime, one person from your group is going to put that into a Google form. But right now what we're going to do is for the next 15 minutes, we're going to go on to question 2. Question 2 will extend the dialogue from question 1. So question 2 is, I'm going to need the slides for this. Thank you. Right. So if we asked you for the key takeaways, now we're asking you, where should rooted revival begin? Where do we start? What do you think? And again, maybe 3 key points that you come to at the end of 15 minutes of where should rooted revival begin. Try and distill it down, try and agree, inshallah. So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's start the second part of our dialogue. You have 15 minutes, inshallah.
محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال.
You have about 2 minutes left to get your thoughts together on paper because someone from your group is going to be typing all of this information into the Google form. So make sure your handwriting is legible, whoever's taking notes, and start to just finalize your thoughts for that second question.
يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين
Assalamu alaikum. If I can get everyone to just pause for a minute, please. If you can pause for a minute. You can finish your thought and pause for a minute, please. Okay. We're having some really rich conversations, mashallah, across many of the groups. We'd like to capture the richness. So one of the brothers has established a mentee. A mentee is a way for us to see the dialogues that's happening in each group live. So if one person in your group can use the QR code, which is also on the WhatsApp group, if one person in the group that can use the QR code and access the mentee and start to put your responses, concise responses as a collective, whoever's been taking notes, either writing or typing, if you can put it into the mentee, we'll start getting a chance to see some of the conversations that are happening across the groups. I'll give you a minute to just access that, and then we're going to move to the third question, the third and final question. Okay, if we can put up the slide. All right, so this is your third question, your third, and it's in the WhatsApp group as well if you need. So if you don't have the QR code, if you didn't get it, it's in the WhatsApp group. The third question is challenges and opportunities for rooted revival in my context. We know that many of you are coming from very different contexts. This is an opportunity, if you haven't already, to dig in and speak about the context in which you're coming from, things that are happening in your context in relation to rooted revival, and challenges that you see in relation to the things that you're aspiring for moving forward. So 15 minutes for the final one, the final question, and if you have thoughts or questions, we're coming around if you need help, inshallah.
لا لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا ذا الجلال والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام.
Assalamu alaikum everybody. We're going to ask you to start winding down your conversation so that in 2 minutes we're going to have pin drop silence, inshallah. So please finish up what you're doing and what you're discussing.
محمد رسول الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Can we get you to close off your final thoughts and turn your attention back to the front, please? Okay, if you can close off your final thoughts, please, and turn your attention back to the front. I know some of the groups have had some issues with the Menti. It should be fixed now, so you should be able to still upload your responses to questions 2 and 3 now in the next few minutes. We're going to try to wrap up in the next 5 minutes, inshallah, and Dr. Farah and I will just share a few closing thoughts. If we can just have the groups that are still going to save those conversations for lunch would be great. Okay. To close, I just want to say a few quick things. One is, these dialogues are important opportunities for us to learn from one another, and I'm hoping, inshallah, that all of you have gained from other colleagues from around the world and gained different perspective. But this also gives us a bit of a responsibility, and that responsibility is to take this sort of a dialogue and what we've gained from it back to our school communities. So we hope that through the Menti, and when you have access to all of the responses, you'll have an opportunity to take these reflections back to your school communities. The second thing that I just want to quickly share is the point I made at the outset, that there's a richness in the vantage points that we each bring to these dialogues. And we don't want to underestimate how important it is. One of the things that we found when we did the Cambridge dialogues back in December 2023 was that the Islamic studies teachers or scholars that are working around Islamic studies often feel like their voices are not valued in the same way that educators or academics are valued within many of our schools. And that's something that needs to be challenged. It needs to be challenged forthright, knowing that we each bring a significant perspective, whether it be around school leadership and understanding the context of our schools, or it be around academia and research and empirical or conceptual work around the concept of Islamic schooling, or it be from the Islamic tradition and really a deep understanding of what we mean by a lot of the things that we heard in the 2 keynote speeches. So I think we need to recenter these sorts of opportunities in our schools where we have multiple vantage points at the table to have these dialogues, knowing that we'll have a lot of questions that go unanswered. And I think if you look at the white paper that was produced out of the Cambridge dialogues, on the last page, there's a list of the questions that left unanswered. And that's what we're hoping will continue to be something that pushes us forward. We don't want to repeat dialogues. We want to continue to advance. Based on what we're learning, how do we continue to ask even deeper questions about the way forward? So those are my 2 takeaways from the dialogue. I'll pass it to Dr. Farah to close with a few thoughts, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, everyone, for your immense contribution. We can see some amazing points coming up on the Menti. Just to reiterate that if you're struggling to sort of enter your comments and thoughts, just maybe try refreshing, because hopefully we've fixed whatever the issue was with questions 2 and 3. I just want to say a couple of things. I want to say, first of all, that the Global Association of Islamic Schools, is seeking to continue the work that began with the World Conferences on Muslim Education in 1977. What we've tried to do through this dialogue today is illustrate to everybody here that that work can only happen if the people in this room make it happen. It can't be left to the keynote speakers, the scholars, the academics. It's got to be a collaborative effort, and we all need to take responsibility, control our irada, our will, and move forward. I also want to make two further points. The first point is that perhaps when you dialogue with people from an international context, so contexts that are different to our own, what we find is that assumptions that we make about schooling are upended. We think that a school, if I'm in the UK, I think the school in Malaysia or a school in Pakistan or a school in Canada is exactly, they've got the same kind of things happening that I've got happening. Their community is the same. There are many similarities, but our contexts are really, really different. And one of the reasons I feel that, well, we feel collectively that we haven't been able to build on the scholarship from the World Conferences is because context matters so much. And we can only really translate those ideas into practice when we bear context in mind. And we need to learn from each other about each other's contexts. The second point I want to make is that actually, even when we're having that dialogue, not even necessarily internationally, of course internationally, but even I found with colleagues that have got a similar background to me in the UK, we are using terms, the same terms, especially Islamic terms, but we mean different things. We don't mean the exact same thing. And it takes time for people to work out what it is that the other person is thinking, because we assume that they're saying the same thing as me, but actually we're not. So one of the key challenges in our field, and I think that the talks this morning really illustrated that, is to really hone in and think about the terms, the Quranic terms that are core to education. What exactly do they mean? How can we understand them deeply? How can we make connections between those? And encourage a point where we have a shared understanding. The same way we have a shared understanding with English terms about education. We all know roughly what we mean when we say curriculum. We all know roughly what we mean when we say standardized testing. We all know roughly what we mean when we say personalized education. But the Islamic terminology is often not as well thought through or as well understood or as well defined. And to do the work we need to do, that is an important aspect of the work that has to be done, inshallah. So those are the kinds of takeaways that I think are really important. We will be carrying on this dialogue. So be prepared to do this again, inshallah, over the next few days. And hopefully, the other thing that I would really encourage you to do is that the link for the mentee is on the WhatsApp group. You can type it in, and I think there's a code, and that will enable you to read what the other groups wrote. The last time I checked, there was 12 responses to question 1, and I think we had something like 36 groups. So we really encourage you to put your responses in there so that we can learn from the dialogue that you had, and we can distill and share that, inshallah, into a white paper. I would also encourage you to read the white paper which we shared earlier, and we can put these QR codes up for you. I think that's everything, and I think it's time to go for lunch, right? No. Not yet? Okay, I'll hand over to Sister Sophia, and I'm sure she'll tell you what's happening next.
So I know that some of us were able to smell the lunch, and it smells delicious. But a few things before we actually go to lunch. A couple of announcements and one thing that I'm waiting on. But the QR code is going to be displayed for you to go to it and enter your feedback. So that's one. We want you to do that before we go to lunch. Another thing, in your bags, there was a Palestine pin. It's small, so you may not have seen it, but we encourage you to pull that out and wear it proudly in solidarity with Palestine. That's 2. Lunch, actually, by the way, is going to be upstairs in this gallery. So it's 1 floor up when you go to that. And when we come back, we are going to actually have 3 sessions going on. So there will be a session here, which with Dr. Najati on 5D thinking for transformative teaching. Gazing, and it's not gazing. It sounds like gazing or gazing. The room is gazing. Gazing 2 will be character education in Australian Islamic schools, Contemporary Challenges and Ways Forward with Dr. John Ali. Gazing 3 will be Professor Dr. Muhammad Rida Wahiddin, Digital Transformation, and we will return, inshallah, by 1:49. And I say that because 1:50 we plan to begin the session. So after lunch and prayer, prayer will be on the 4th floor, lunch will be up in the gallery. Return to one of those 3 rooms. Decide which one you want to go to. So this is the main room, and there are 2 breakout rooms. If you go out to the left, and they'll be on your right, inshallah. I'd actually, I think I'm going to stop here, and we'll do everything else that we need to do in a later time. Thank you so much, Dr. Farah and Dr. Nadeem, for this session that you conducted with us. It gives a lot of very thought-provoking, and we look forward to continuing that session and continuing the conversations more. And obviously, everyone is really very engaged in answering those 3 questions that were posed. Maybe take the time during lunch to continue those conversations, plus everything else that the speakers this morning talked about. So this is the time. We're here for a few days together. It's very valuable time. So let's make the most of it, inshallah. So please proceed to lunch, prayer, and then coming back at 1:49, inshallah. Thank you.
والإكرام أمتنا على دين الإسلام لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله محمد